All right, in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Others may join us along the way. Good afternoon. I'm Benjamin Krumstok, Chair of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. I'd like to welcome you to our International Compost Awareness Week. The theme that came out of corporate is Recipe for Regeneration Compost. I'd like to acknowledge the corporate sustaining partners of IFSC. Logos here, and clearly something you can view on our website. Want to thank the people who helped to make this whole week possible. The list is here, different folks with different levels of participation, but none of this would be available to us at all were it not for the hard work of these folks. Just to give a quick summary, we had a great kickoff yesterday. Mike Novak hosted 2 of the IFSC members and another Park District participant engaged in a Lake County grant. Good episode. It'll be available if you go to the mikenovak.net address. You can view that. It's already up and running on his website. So very interesting conversation about compost. Today, I'll give you an introduction to the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. Vytas Pabedinskas will give us a presentation on compost, and then we will sign out and have you sign over to the Vermont Composting Vermont Organics Recycling Summit. If you've registered, Finney and Makepeace of Kiss the Soil will be giving their keynote. If you have not already registered, you can still register in real time. They have a full week of activity, and you're welcome to participate in that as well. Tuesday, we have a recorded farmer panel, lively discussion for an hour and a half among different farmers from Illinois with different involvement with compost and use of compost. Wednesday, the Collective Resource Compost has a compost gift back program, which again is listed on our website, so you can learn more about that particular program. Thursday night, we will have another partly recorded session, 2 tours, one of Christensen Farms, an IFSC member, an Illinois EPA permitted composting facility, and then Tulip Tree Gardens, a regenerative farm. We'll have a live Q&A with one of the farmers from Tulip Tree. And what I'm going to encourage folks is if you show up on Tuesday, it's a recorded session, so you won't have an opportunity for live Q&A. If you want to type questions into the chat that you might have, we'll try to collate that and have those questions available, see if there's time for Jesse to answer those questions on Thursday. And then Sunday, it's not an official IFSC component, but again, Collective Resource Compost has another give back. So this time around, Illinois did recognize the ICAW as, did it recognize Illinois Compost Awareness Week. Senate Resolution 706 was adopted by the Illinois State Senate. I want to say thank you very much to Liz Kunkel and Jen Walling. Liz for inspiring it and helping it move along. Jen for obviously helping it move along. And then the 2 state sponsors, Laura Fine, who really put the effort forward first, and co-sponsor is Senator Laura Murphy. A little bit about the IFSC. Born in 2012, there was a group that assembled at a food scrap forum in Highland Park with the discussion principally focused on food scrap diversion from Illinois landfills. By 2015, the organization registered as a non-for-profit with the Illinois Secretary of State, and by 2016 had bylaws and a board. Advancing ahead to 2021, IFSC had become the host of the Illinois chapter of the US Composting Council and also adopted an all organics feedstock platform. In this case, with the all organics feedstock platform, while the core mission of the IFSC is the food scrap diversion, this is dependent upon the general organics composting infrastructure. And if we're going to move the first agenda, we have to be able to support the composting industry. So IFSC is now actively engaged in representing and supporting Illinois composters and facilitating expansion of the infrastructure that's going to be necessary if we really want to achieve our core goal of getting those food scraps reprocessed. IFSC has, from the origin, really put significant effort and has had great success in helping municipalities and other organizations develop and execute food scrap diversion programs. And presently, we are actively involved in educating the public and any other agencies and municipalities about compost use and creating opportunities for compost use and sales in Illinois. Who are our members? It's a broad spectrum of membership. So anybody and everybody can have a role and has a place here in the organization. Talk about individual residents and green folks, environmentally interested folks who are interested in diverting the food scraps, may even have higher mission agendas, including mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, recycling and preserving those organic nutrients that are in the food organics and other organics, and mitigating climate change. We have municipal and regional solid waste agencies that are important and active members. Dedicated food scrap haulers, and large-scale regional and national waste and organics haulers, and transfer station operators. So corporate interests and the folks who make all of this possible. And then composters of various types. We run the spectrum from backyard composters all the way up to the large-scale commercial composters. The organization is all about relationships and relationship building. We have liaisons from the Illinois EPA and the US EPA. And I'd like to just draw attention to the fact that several of the IFSC members and leaders were active participants or even leaders of the Illinois EPA Materials Management Advisory Committee program that was just completed in July of 2021. There's a link there. You should learn more. It was an amazing opportunity to audit the whole of waste management in the state. And now it's up to us to push to get some of these important strategies implemented. And IFSC is always looking to engage with as broad and diverse an audience as possible. So community groups and other interest groups, we want to meet you, we want to collaborate. IFSC has a few committees: education, compost market development, policy, communications, and our We Compost committee. I want to just draw the attention to the fact that the policy committee isn't down in Springfield lobbying, but we are fortunate to have a group that's assembling a whole lot of information about legislation, whether it's something that IFSC can absolutely rally behind, or if it's something where different constituencies within IFSC may have different opinions. At least we're assembling responsible and reliable information so that individual stakeholders within IFSC can make their own determinations of whether to support the policy and advocate for it. The We Compost recognition program is exciting. Different levels of participation from folks who divert their food scraps using a hauler to those who actually compost organics on site. There's a website page. Please visit that page. Find restaurants that are We Compost members and support them. Let them know that you're stopping by because you found them. You can find us on the social media. Want to draw your attention to this PSA that we have, hard work by Mike DiMucci. If it grows, it goes. 2 versions of this PSA. It's available for you to download, modify, use. The key here is that we're really working hard to reduce contamination in all organic feedstocks, whether it's food scraps, landscape, all of that material that ends up at a commercial composter as a contaminant is a problem and really hurts the overall agenda of diversion and compost use. So I'll suggest that you join the IFSC. You have a home here, and also consider joining the US Composting Council. At this point, they're 2 separate memberships, and that may evolve over time. Again, the keynote speaker from Vermont, or for the Vermont program, is Finian Makepeace of Kiss the Ground. It's a video presentation. And if you'd like to register, go ahead. You can do that at any point this week as well. So I'm going to pass the baton to John Lardner. John is a board member and treasurer of the organization. He is the leader of the Illinois chapter of USCC and has long served as liaison between IFSC and the US Composting Council. John, all yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Benjamin. I've put together this brief slide to just talk about some of the programs and opportunities at the US Composting Council. Their mission is that the US Composting Council advances compost manufacturing, compost utilization, and organics recycling to benefit the members' society and the environment. So their purpose is very broad in terms of the advocating for the members, but also looking for the environment to better that. The big event for the US Composting Council once a year is their Composting Conference. Next year's conference will be in Long Beach, California, a nice warm climate. Along with that, with the conference, they also have a equipment trade show, a demonstration out at a compost site. So it's kind of a fun place to be. They also have a affiliated organization. It's separate, but allied to the US Composting Council is the Compost Research and Education Foundation. They are the organization that sponsors the International Compost Awareness Week, which we're enjoying this week. They also perform various research studies that are funded by members of the US Composting Council. They also offer a young professionals program that prepares and hosts webinars on different topics, and many of them introductory to composting. They also do community projects during the Compost Conference, wherever that location is. And they also sponsor a mentoring program where seasoned veterans in the compost industry mentor young members or those that are new to the industry. They also offer different training courses. One, there's certified compost operator training course that's held at a compost site at various locations throughout the country. And they're new to the USCC is their Compost U online training, where you can get training on specific topics without having to travel. One of the early ones that are coming up on specifications on using compost in different industry applications. They also offer a program for commercial composters called the Seal of Testing Assurance, where there's certain lab tests that need to be performed. And if they pass those, then their material gets a quality assurance seal that they can use to assure their customers that the compost they're using meets the specifications for its use. They have very many committees, too many to mention on today. The one that I belong to, the Legislation and Environmental Advocacy Committee, looks at legislation not only statewide but national to look at opportunities to advocate for compost. Two of the big activities they have going now is a compost infrastructure bill in Congress, and I think there's another compost bill. I don't know the exact one, but very important to the industry, and they're advocating and keeping their eye on that to try and get those moving through. They also offer state chapters. There's, I think, 15 now. Illinois is one of those chapters, the Illinois Composting Alliance. And as you see, the states listed there, and the 3 in parentheses, Florida, Georgia, and Vermont are looking to join. There's various membership levels. They vary by company size. The lowest level is as low as $50 to become a compost advocate, and there's some training involved that you can take part in that to become an advocate at a low entry level to get the benefits. And they also, for those that are interested in the industry and joining somehow, they do have a jobs posting, so that if you're looking to get employed in the compost industry, there's opportunities to respond to their job postings. So these are just some of the activities for the US Composting Council. I encourage you, if you're not aware of the organization, to go on the website and learn more about it. So that concludes that, and welcome everyone to Illinois Compost Awareness Week.
Great, thank you very much, John. We're going to transition now to Vytas Pabedinskas. Vytas is a soil scientist, and he's going to let us know about compost and soil regeneration and use of compost in agriculture.
Thank you, Benjamin. Okay, so yes, the theme for I call this week Recipe for Regeneration. I'm going to talk about the use of compost in agriculture. As Benjamin said, my name is Vytas Pabedinskas, a soil scientist up in Lake County, Illinois, and I'm here to talk about compost and its potential role in improving agricultural soils specifically, but soils in general. This image that you see here is a field in Grays Lake, Illinois, that's participating in a USDA grant, a USDA grant-supported compost demonstration. This field has been in production for over 150 years. While it's still productive, it is low in organic matter, becomes cracked and hard when dry, slow to take up water during heavy rain events, which is all typical of an old soil with high clay content that's been tilled and conventionally managed for decades. Compost can help mitigate some of these issues as it returns organic matter. And just to give you a sense of scale, this is a drone image, and these plots run about 600 feet long, now 40 feet wide. Liz, can you switch the slide? I can't tell. Liz, do you switch the slide? Yes, okay. So what is compost? So I'm going to rely on the U.S. Composting Council's definition. Define compost as the product manufactured through the controlled aerobic biological decomposition of biodegradable materials. Product has undergone mesophilic and thermophilic temperatures. It significantly reduces the viability of pathogens and weed seeds. It stabilizes the carbon such that it is beneficial to plant growth. Compost is typically used as a soil amendment, but may also contribute plant nutrients. Finished compost is typically screened to reduce particle size to improve soil incorporation. So it's not a mulch, although it does help maintain soil moisture like one. It's not a fertilizer, although when it breaks, it's broken down by microbes, it does provide macro and micronutrients. So it's a multifaceted soil amendment that improves soil physical qualities, soil chemistry, and soil biology, at the same time acting as a means to maintain carbon levels in soil. This improvement to soil leads to better yields while decreasing the need for conventional inputs, leading to an overall cost saving. In agriculture, it is not simply making soil more productive, it's bringing it back to life. In terms of sustainability, compost takes that which was treated like trash, yard waste, and food scraps, material that's, when it's committed to landfills, poses a threat to our atmosphere when it produces methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, and it turns that material into a glue that holds soil to the land, makes it a sponge that keeps water in the ground, provides habitat for microbes to flourish, and acts like a bank to save up carbon. So we need to consider compost as a value-added product, not simply a means to divert waste. And this quote at the bottom comes from a different demonstration that was done in Ontario, Canada. And they write, at the same time, the compost industry must begin to be considered as a fundamental member of agriculture sector instead of being treated as an outsider, viewed primarily for its waste diversion attributes. Next slide. So starting with the carbon, putting it back into the soil. Carbon is not permanent, but its turnover should be managed. Its pools should be increased. So soil organic matter, SOM, is the largest carbon pool at the Earth's surface. Soil has a high capacity to retain organic forms of carbon, making it a viable way to sequester carbon. To raise organic matter 1% in the soil, you will need to add approximately 20 tons of compost, and you'd be applying that at 1/4 inch depth, 1 acre of farmland. So this is equal to 10 tons of carbon. The graph that you see on the right shows if you have continuous grain crops with conventional management, if you start off at a certain point, you have a pretty precipitous drop in organic matter over the years. And even when you introduce things like crop rotations and residue management, you may still have fluctuations and still a decrease in total organic matter. So using compost, which is a fairly stable form of carbon that's already gone through the breakdown process, you're able to build up organic matter in the soil. Next slide. So Compost improves soil physical characteristics. That means it improves structure with better aggregation. That means it holds together better. It improves water holding capacity in sandy soils. It improves water infiltration and percolation in clay soils. It decreases the bulk density of soil. It mitigates compaction issues. It improves tilth, which is basically the workability of soil. So it's that when you pick up a handful, it's got that crumbly feel to it. You're not trying to pound through it like as if it was a sidewalk or cement, which is the picture that you have there in the middle, where it looks like almost like surface like the moon. This comes from a community garden that's also participating in the USDA compost demonstration grant. The probe that you see on the right is a farm that's been adding compost for nearly 15 years. That is about a 16-inch, 18-inch profile that you see there. So they started with that light colored clay soil down at the bottom that's formless and just pretty much very smooth. And over that 15 plus years, they developed this nice, dark, crumbly, humus-filled profile, upwards around 14%, which is actually quite high in terms of organic matter in the soil. So for every 1% of organic matter added, soil can hold an extra 16,500 gallons of plant available water down to 1 foot deep per acre. Next slide. So continuing on with the idea of physical characteristics that are changed when you add compost. The graph on the right, you see the amount of water being held in terms of inches per unit of area with every percentage increase of organic matter. And you have different types of soils here, from a sand to a silty clay loam. And then on the graph on the right is a qualitative view of the improvements that you would see over time applying compost to soil. You first start with increasing the amount of carbon at the soil surface. Then the next is improved structure. After that, you'll see improvement in your water holding and nutrient holding capacity. When they talk about water and air quality, they talk about the interaction with the atmosphere, because the soil itself has an atmosphere and you need to have good O2 or oxygen going in and carbon dioxide being released for healthy roots. And then at the end, you can consider an improvement in productivity. So this is a process that takes time. It's not something that you can improve soils within just simply 1 or 2 growing seasons. You know, as you saw on the slide before, it took 15 years for that farm to build up such a profile with constant 1 inch every year compost additions. Next slide. So compost can improve soil chemistry. That means it buffers the pH, so it prevents large swings in terms of becoming too acidic or too alkaline. It improves exchange capacity, which means how well it can hold on to nutrients. And then it also holds on to problematic metals, things like chromium or nickel or lead or arsenic. And then it keeps others, things that we know as macro and micronutrients like iron, makes them more plant available. So the image that you have on the left, 2 different soils at 2 different percentages of organic matter, and you visibly see, even though the percentages doesn't seem that great, going from 1% to 5%, it is a definite big change in the quality of soil. And then the graph on the right shows that with every percentage increase of organic matter, you're gaining basically $18 increase of yield. That's a significant boost for a farmer if they can manage to keep that organic matter percentage high in their soils. Next slide. Compost improves soil biology. So carbon and nutrients are constantly cycling, dependent on the microbiology to do that. Organic matter is fuel. It feeds microbes. Compost is not a one-time application. The organic matter holds more diverse community of microbes that can break down organic compounds like pesticides and herbicides, plastics and petrochemicals, reducing their lifespan in soils. The greater the microbial diversity means better disease suppression as well. The colorful graph that you see on the top is a turf plot with the different sites from where they were sampling. And even though it does look like, what it is actually DNA sequencing. And we're looking at the genus level. So quite colorful, quite amount of a large amount of diversity that you're seeing there. And even though this is a plot that was the size of a basic yard that we find here up in Lake County, you still find some pretty good fluctuations just within yards of each other. This diversity is necessary to accomplish all the functions that a healthy soil can perform. And what you see down at the bottom is an EPA document or an article about using composting soils that have been contaminated to deal with things like explosives that were around an explosives plant. So the idea there is that composting builds up the microbial community that can tackle such issues as degrading complicated organic compounds. Next slide. So knowing all that about compost, who are the players involved? So we'll first start with the farmers. What will get farmers to use more compost? What do they need? They need to rely on a consistent product. And that's why you have entities like the US Composting Council that provides the STA, the testing data. So when they put that seal that you see at the bottom left corner, the farmer can be confident that it is a quality product. Farmers also need a clean product, free of contaminants. So this speaks to the feedstock that the compost generators receive. If it's full of plastic, stickers, bags, it's not something that they feel confident putting out in their field. Farmers also need a variety of product. Not one compost fits all situations. So that talks about screen size, which means the size of the particle in the compost, which you see at the bottom. You have the fine one that's on the right, and you have a rough one on the left. They perform different purposes. One could be more for water filtration, and the other one is more for nutrient delivery and maybe a greenhouse or a potting situation. The farmer needs education. How to apply it? What are the guidelines? And that's what you see over on the right. Those are parameters for vegetable production. They also need availability to technology. So not all farmers can afford all the equipment necessary to spread this material. And so you have potential for a niche industry. Down in the bottom right corner, this is a gentleman who his current job now is going from farm to farm, from location to location, spreading compost and manure. He made the investment and his calendar is quite booked up. And he focuses just merely on applying amendments to fields. And then farmers, once they start making these changes into their practices, they should advertise it. So that's what we have right here. This is a sign that we have alongside one of our fields that are participating in the compost grant. It's nice to let the public know that farmers are changing their ways and trying to improve things on their fields as well as in the environment. What do compost generators need? Well, they need first a clean feedstock. Haulers and waste energy agencies must ensure programs are delivering clean material so as not to burden the generators with having to clean it up. And that is a sample of some material that has made it to a composting site and what they have to pick through. That is a lot of additional labor for them.
Next slide. Next slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next slide. My apologies. Looking for something with trash. Okay, so compost generators need clean feedstock. This is a sample of a compost site, and this is what they've received. So they need to work with haulers and waste agencies to make sure that they get something clean. So the process is easy and manageable for them. They should have reasonable operating parameters and not simply be filed under landfills when it comes to permitting and rulemaking. They also need an educated public that's conscientious about their diversion effort, where the organics bin does not become a third trash can, and that the public closes a loop by purchasing locally produced compost. What does the public need? Again, this conscientious participation. So yes, they have good intentions, but they do need to take the step to make sure that the material that they're putting into their bins is clean and ready to be composted. The public needs to encourage park districts to use it on their sports fields and their parks, municipalities to participate in the collection of organics, push school districts to move away from synthetics and used in their green spaces and divert organic material from their cafeteria waste stream. They should push public works to include compost in their BMPs and see if they can start sustainability committees to support projects in their areas. The public also needs better education in terms of how to properly divert organic matter and the importance of that diversion, and how to use compost effectively at their own homes. So the whole idea is to close the loop, support local agriculture that uses compost in its soil management. And what you have an image here in this next slide is a drop off of a load at a local park district. The bottom image is a complex collection of things happening. You have pumpkins getting collected, you have distribution of bad compost for those who are dropping off, and that community garden in the background is actually receiving that load of compost from the same facility that's going to be processing that pumpkin compost. So it's a great sort of opportunity to educate the public on how the loop of composting works. Next slide. Thank you for your time.
Great. So thank you very much, Vytas. I'm going to close our session shortly here. We'll ask you to migrate over to Vermont if you're ready and interested. Our programming will be posted to our YouTube channel within the next week or three, ideally, and available to anybody who would like to watch it who hasn't had an opportunity. Vytas and John are available by email, so if you have questions specifically, touch base with them, and of course, check out our website. Thanks a lot to everybody.
Thank you. Great presentation, Vytas. Thanks, you guys.